What is crack-a-lackin', everybody? My name is Alex, and welcome back to the Back on Track podcast. It has been it's been a couple weeks since you've seen an episode from us, but I'm back. We're back. It's just me again today because of scheduling things once again. Keep in mind, I have been taking tests and writing an essay all day today, so please bear with me because I have very little mental capacity left to be completing this episode. But I am here, and I will get this done. With that said, I'm just gonna kind of roll into it. We don't have Cage and Beckett, so it's just gonna be my point of view today. So I can't speak for them once again. We went through all this last time. You know that. You know the drill. But we have a lot of current events. A lot of stuff happened in the past couple weeks since we've been gone that I kind of wanted to touch on, even though some of it might not be, the most up-to-date information. But I'm just gonna go through all of it nonetheless. First up, the Supreme Court has once again had to intervene in California, voting 5-4 that the coronavirus restrictions on religious gatherings were unconstitutional. Remember, this is not the first time this has happened. California, Governor Newsom, they have been trying to, put the boot down on religious gatherings for months and months and months on end. And this is another victory, but only by a small margin. You might be thinking, wait, aren't there 6 conservative justices? And I would answer, no, there are not. Because John Roberts is not a conservative. John Roberts, the supposedly conservative Chief Justice, is a puppet of the left. And the fact that he and the other liberal appointed judges think that restrictions on religion in America are constitutional, it really shows a lot about him and what he stands for. And I think that it shows that just because someone can put the R next to their name or show up red, on whatever news platform they're on, it doesn't matter because it's their actions that actually dictate how we should judge them and how we should look at them from a Congress or elected figure point of view, if you know what I'm trying to say. So it's crazy that someone like him or anyone in general could say, I think we should restrict religion for the cause of fake safety. You can't see me, I'm doing air quotes right now. So we're going to have to keep watching that because they're probably going to have to contest it again at some point. Up next, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, I believe I said Edinburgh, right, has just passed away this week. He was married to Queen Elizabeth II for over 73 years, and he served as her consort for 69 years and 62 days, making him the longest-serving consort of the British monarch. My source was Guinness, like the world record place. That's how long he was serving for. That is 69 years. That is a crazy amount of time to be in charge. Well, not really. They're all figureheads, but you know what the deal is. Up next on the list, a coronavirus vaccine site in Georgia just became the 4th U.S. location this week, as of the writing of that article, to pause its administration of the Johnson & Johnson jab. I can't word that myself, the J&JJ. After concerns over possible adverse reactions, says the report, 8 people experienced lightheadedness after getting the shot Wednesday at the Cumming Fairgrounds. I believe that the same thing was happening in a lot of countries in the European Union, where it was the AstraZeneca vaccine and it was having problems with not only effectiveness, but issues where people were having some pretty serious side effects. So the last I checked, it was like 7 or 8 countries had completely stopped administering the AstraZeneca vaccine, but now it's Johnson & Johnson in America. So you're going to have to keep watching that because that's something that could be potentially serious if it's not taken care of. The next thing I have on the list this is funny. AOC has been found by a study to be one of the least effective members of Congress. None of her proposed legislation has ever made it out of committee, and she has only put 21 bills forward in the 2.5 years she's been in office. It seems like she's just a socialist figurehead with no purpose other than to collect her large salary. And the one thing I thought was really funny is they actually did a study on that. Well, they probably do one of those like every year, but you do not need a study to tell you that AOC is one of the least effective members of Congress. You can look at her and be like, you know what, she's probably the least effective member of Congress. it's mind-boggling how someone can just be she makes so much money. What's the congressional salary? Isn't it like 175,000 ish? How can someone of that caliber make that much money? That it just blows my mind. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the new voting law in Georgia. And I didn't really have much prepared for this because I didn't really think I was going to talk about it because this is almost old news now. But news came out today that over 100 CEOs and executives from large companies, a lot of them having headquarters and operations in Georgia, met together on a Zoom call to discuss the, quote, restrictive voting law, end quote, passed in Georgia. Well, I'm sure they have no agenda and they want what's best for you, right? Maybe, probably not. But I think it's funny that they say like, oh, you have a choice, and all these companies, like, they're just doing like what they believe in. But if you look at it's 100 CEOs. That's a lot of companies. I mean, the Fortune 500 is only 500. If those are all Fortune 500 companies, imagine that's 20% of companies in America that are conspiring against you. What I would say that might be a little exaggerated, but you get what I'm trying to point at. They're trying to go against what the public wants. The public agrees with voter ID. That's like, I want to say 73% of people agree with voter ID, yet the only people that oppose it are the Democrats in Congress, and apparently, now that we've seen this, large companies like CEOs and executives. So I don't know. I'm not really a big fan of when large companies decide what's best for America, because it's kind of out of touch and, a little bit, I'm trying to find the words right now, but it doesn't look good in my opinion. All right. Well, with all that said, I'm going to get right into my segment that I had prepared. I really wanted to talk about gun control, and I wrote this segment before, when I was expecting to do an episode for Easter weekend. So I've kind of had this saved for a while, and it's something that comes up. It's almost like a cycle. Gun control kind of like simmers down a little bit. The left will talk about it, like you'll have AOC say something about it because she's a commie, right? But other than that, it kind of dies down, right? And then some major event happens, right? A mass shooting, a school shooting, something like that happens. And suddenly, it comes up into the public forum again, and people are talking about it a lot. The only time it doesn't come up is when people mention Chicago, like literal World War III, war zone, Chicago. Guns don't get mentioned there because that's not the right crime. Just saying. I'm just spitting facts here. But for a long time, the left has been trying to just get rid of the Second Amendment, and there's really no question about it. Between the first gun control legislation in 1934 to the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act signed by Bill Clinton in 1994, that's the 1994 crime bill that Joe Biden was behind. It's just constantly been a battle to preserve our rights, which, as stated by the Constitution, shall not be infringed. Man, those are some pretty specific words. I wonder if the founders were completely serious when they said that. Yeah, they were. They were completely serious. But whether it be AR-15s, high-capacity magazines, or, quote, military-grade weapons, whatever, we're going to get into that, the point is, everything's got to go, right? According to them. Now, fun fact, I said AR-15s and military-grade weapons in two separate thoughts because the AR-15 is not a military-grade weapon, and it never was. The military variant of the AR-15 is the M16, which is fully automatic. The AR-15, on the other hand, shoots one round for every pull of the trigger, meaning you can't hold the trigger and spray bullets like many leftists try to claim. I just debunked it. Boom. And another fun fact, the AR in AR-15 doesn't stand for assault rifle, it doesn't even stand for automatic rifle, like many people think. It stands for Armalite rifle. Armalite rifle. The company that created the AR-15 in the 1950s. Now, before I keep going on this, what is an assault rifle? Please help me define it. Comment, leave a comment. Yeah, leave a comment. What is an assault rifle? I mean, a pistol can be used to assault someone. A bazooka can be used to assault someone. Fists can be used to assault someone, as we're going to get into. Do I now have assault hands and feet? I mean, that's just why I feel like the definition assault weapon or assault rifle is so stupid. A pencil is an assault weapon if you use it, in the right way. The point is, though, that for almost a century, we've been trying to remove and repeal one of the greatest and most important rights granted in the Constitution. I have heard many people say, including Dave Chappelle of all people, that the Second Amendment is just there in case the first one doesn't work out. And I actually completely agree with that statement. I mean, just because we are guaranteed that, now remember, the Constitution is not what gives us our rights. It just secures them and says that that's the basis of what our country is built on, right? So free speech, that's a God-given right. Freedom of religion, that's a God-given right because God gives us free will, right? So just because it's God-given doesn't mean we can't go practice Islam, or Buddhism. It's a God-given right, being able to do what you desire, right? That doesn't say that things don't have consequences. They do, but that's not the point of what I'm trying to get into. The Second Amendment, though, regardless of what many people may think, is not for hunting. It's not for recreational shooting or anything like that. Even though I think the ability to do those things is important, it is for defense, and mainly for defense against a tyrannical government, right? So when the founders were writing this in, they wanted it for defense, but not like someone breaks into your house and you defend yourself against them. It was defense against the government becoming overreaching. They wanted protection against something like a monarchy from ever happening again, right? Because it's the will of the people that allows the government to run. And I think that we've lost sight of that in the past couple hundred years because we've slowly drifted away from that. When I said the first gun control legislation was in 1934, I don't think anyone thought it was that far back. I mean, Alexander Hamilton, he was writing in the Federalist Papers, and he called a well-regulated militia the most natural defense of a free country. So right now we have it's not a regulated militia. We have a military, right? Provided by the government. It's all taxpayer funded, though. I mean, we pay for it. But a free country is built on a regulated militia. A militia is the people, right? You and me and all of us getting together, taking up arms and saying, we're defending against this, or we are fighting for this, right? Stuff like that. Now, Thomas Jefferson stated in the Virginia Constitution, the first draft of the Virginia Constitution in 1776, so this is right around the same time of the Revolutionary War, no free man shall ever be debarred the use of arms. And he was not talking about the arms attached to your body. He was referring to the weapons. The assault weapons, as they might call them now. But he was also quoted in his commonplace book, which is kind of like a journal, and he was saying, "The laws that forbid the carrying of arms are laws of such a nature. They disarm only those who are neither inclined nor determined to commit crimes. Such laws make things worse for the assaulted and better for the assailants. They serve rather to encourage than to prevent homicides, for an unarmed man may be attacked with greater confidence than an armed man." This is like the entire argument against gun control that's being spoken today in America. Gun control does not stop criminals. Criminals who get guns illegally will always get guns illegally, and they will continue to do so even if you say, "No, don't take that gun," or "No, don't do that." The problem is people who don't want to break the law, people like regular Americans who are saying, "No, I'm not going to break the law just to have a gun," they're the people that get hurt when the guns get taken away, because now they can't defend themselves. They can't protect against a tyrannical government, but the criminals are, allowed to run free with no consequences because for some reason, they generally do not get consequences. Look at Chicago. See, it all ties in. But so now we've looked at why the founders thought it was important. So let's look at some myths about guns to see if we can't debunk them on the basis of facts and statistics. Before we do that, speaking of facts and statistics, today I made a reel on Instagram about arguing with facts against liberals. You should totally go check it out, because the reels I make, I think they're funny. I personally think they're funny. And I think you might think they're funny too. So if you will to just go on over to our Instagram, give us a follow, go like our reels, because I think they're pretty awesome. That's all I'm going to say. While I'm saying that, remember, all of our sources are at sources.backontrack.com, because, we want to make sure that we're not just making it up. So you have access to all the sources that we use. So that just makes it easier for you to make sure that we're saying the right stuff, right? Hold us accountable. All right. Myth number 1 about guns. The AR-15 is the deadliest firearm in the world. Wrong. There are many guns that are equally deadly, with the same magazine capacity, with even higher caliber rounds, and nobody is talking about them. Semi-automatic shotguns are not a target of the left, yet they are considerably more deadly than an AR-15 would be at close range. If you look up a video of semi-automatic shotgun, you probably see why it might be a little bit more dangerous than an AR-15. But remember, it's all about the image. So the AR-15, it's like, oh, it's in black. It doesn't have any wood on it. It looks scary, right? How a gun looks does not change what it does. Guns are designed to kill, right? That's not... It's just, that's how it is, right? Myth number 2. The AR-15 is an automatic rifle. We already stated this. Wrong. An automatic rifle is any weapon, as stated by the ATF, any weapon which shoots, is designed to shoot, or can be readily restored to shoot automatically more than one shot without manual reloading by a single function of the trigger. That's a lot of fancy words. With an AR-15, one pull of the trigger means one bullet comes out of the chamber. There's no way around it unless you illegally modify your gun, which is illegal. See? Boom. There's already laws against that. Come on. Can do this all day. Myth number 3. AR-15s are responsible for most homicides in America. Also wrong. According to FBI data, remember, I went and compiled this data, right? 2016, 2017, 2018, I believe 2019 is also in there as well. According to that data, you are 3 times more likely to die by knife stabbing than a rifle. And that includes all rifles, not just AR-15s. You are also twice as likely to die by hands, fists, and feet than die by AR-15. Actually, not AR-15, all rifles, once again. As I was talking about before, are we going to ban hands and feet? I mean, seriously, think about it. Are you going to ban hands and feet because they are more deadly than AR-15s? There's no way you can look at the death statistics for AR-15s and then compare them to knives or hands, fists, feet, and say, oh yeah, we should get rid of AR-15s because they're so deadly. That's not true. And lastly, myth number 4. AR-15s are the weapon of choice for mass shootings. Nope. Even in the New York Times article about how mass shooters got their guns, more than half of the instances listed were handguns and without any rifles. I said without any rifles. I have no idea what I meant by that. What I'm saying is that a lot of leftists like to argue that AR-15s, that's just what people use. Like, oh, I want to go commit a mass shooting, I'm going to go use an AR-15. But the problem is, it's not really that much more effective than going and using a handgun. Remember, AR-15s aren't automatic, so one pull of the trigger is one shot. So you could do the same thing with a 9mm pistol, and you would do the same amount of damage, right? Both guns are going to kill people, right? And I wanted to go across, because I was listening to a couple Crowder videos on this just to, educate myself a little more. And I actively watch Crowder because I think he's kind of hilarious. He was saying a lot of people say that we shouldn't have guns that are designed to kill people, as opposed to what? Guns that aren't designed to kill people? I mean, when you think about it, there's no logic to the argument. You either want guns or you don't want them. You can't say we're going to ban AR-15s because they're the most deadly. then when you find out that they're not the most deadly, you go, oh, well, then we're going to have to go ban the most deadly one. That means you just want to ban all guns. And I strongly disagree with that, if you can't tell. So I think people are like, there's no in the middle. It's pick a side, right? Yes, I want to ban guns. No, I don't want to ban guns. And I think that if you can look at all these statistics from the FBI, look at the specific definition of an automatic rifle, the ATF, right? And you say, okay, knowing that, maybe I should change my position because I was wrong on this, right? And I think the problem is that conversation isn't being had. There's probably people out there that are like, wait a minute, after looking at the statistics, I don't believe that. They're not as deadly as you say they are. But the problem is everyone's just being silenced so that they're pressured to not speak on the subject just because that's not what the left wants. And I think that that's really dangerous because at some point the Second Amendment could be lost just because that conversation was never had because no one allowed them to have it. I mean, you look at the media just shuts everyone up when they start bringing up the facts, statistics, and the numbers that show that the AR-15 is not as deadly as they say it is, and that mass shootings are, they'll say mass shootings are committed by mostly white people. That's not true either, And the problem is, it's just no one with a big enough voice can debunk it because they just cancel them, right? And we already spoke about cancel culture, I think twice now already. So you can, shameless plug here, you can go back to those episodes and listen about cancel culture while we're here. Take a break, right? But the point is, there's no, like I said, like 5 times already, there's no conversation on this. So I think we kind of have to open up that conversation and say, okay, like go to the people, not put it through media because media has so much bias. It's disgusting. Just take it to the people like, okay, these are the numbers. These are the statistics. Now look at it and evaluate it for yourself. Sorry, I'm tripping up so much right now. My tongue is getting tied. So I think that we have to let people think for themselves, and then we can have a productive conversation on how we feel about guns. And I'm pretty sure, I don't think my position will ever change on guns, just because that's what I believe and that's what I stand for. And I think it's really important that we find what we stand for and we kind of stick to it, because if you stand for nothing, you will fall for anything. I can't remember who said that. Someone said that, and I thought it was a really good quote. All right. Well, that's kind of the end of my segment. I didn't really have much more to talk about other than that. I mean, there were a few kind of major events that prompted me to talk about that subject, but I'm not going to really get into that because I don't have many of the details on them. But I'm sure you've heard about them because they've been nonstop being covered by the media and the news, stuff like that. So I actually am going to answer some questions of yours. So roll the intro.
We're answering your questions.
Da-da-da-da-da-da. I wonder if they, I wonder who's going to figure out where we got our intro from. Sorry, the dog's barking in the background. Oh boy. All right. You're probably not going to you probably don't even hear it. So we actually only got one question this week, and it was, how do you write notes and plan for an episode every week? That is an excellent, excellent question, because I ask myself how I do it, how we do it all the time. So before I answer this question, I will say that we all wish we could up it to more like 2 to 3 episodes a week, or even like 4 to 5, like something like Crowder or Ben Shapiro does. But the planning and note-taking required to do a full-length episode is a lot of time and energy. And add on top of the fact that we all have to come together and record, and we all have things on top of it like school, jobs, families. We have families, yeah, believe it or not. And it makes it difficult to prepare for episodes. So we do try our best to, put them together, but it would just be, an immense amount of work without a bigger team to put together something like 2 to 3 episodes a week. So that's why we don't do that. Now, to answer the question, the 3 of us usually pick topics by like midweek, and the notes are typically finished the day before we start recording. Beckett and Cage are always last minute on the notes, but I like to write mine as soon as possible so I'm ready for the episode when we record. So that's why these notes were written like a week and a half ago. But we also have to gather our evidence and sources so that we're not just making things up, as well as pulling together all the current events for the week. And, so we do have some relevance. As for recording, we kind of just sit down, decide who our fake sponsor is going to be, and get right to it. Since we've been getting better at holding up a conversation, and since kind of like what I'm doing right now, I'm talking to myself for half an hour, and we've gotten way better at, doing it in one take. So we do it all the way through with no stops now. And that makes it, one, way easier on the editing process, and two, it just kind of makes it flow better and look more natural, which is something that we were kind of striving for. Now, after recording, there's a whole post process, right? So we kind of have to take our audio clips. Remember, we've got 3 mics normally instead of just 1. And we put them all into software and make them sound nice and pretty. So we have good voices, got our radio voices going. And then we're kind of just like, we kind of just post it, right? I make a fake video for YouTube so YouTube can have it. And then you listen to it, right? And then you leave us comments, and then you send us hate mail sometimes, which is kind of fun to read. You know what's funny? I actually don't get bothered by hate mail. I don't know why. So that's kind of answering that question. And I will say, we do love getting questions, and I love answering the questions. So I highly recommend that you send in some questions. You can email them to info@backontrack.com. We even have a fancy email just for answering questions. You can also email your thoughts and concerns there, coincidentally. So if you decide to do that, maybe we'll bring it up on an episode too. Now, with all that said, I'm probably going to have to wrap it up here. I think I covered most of the stuff I wanted to talk about. Remember, we do have a fundraiser going on. We're trying to raise $6,500, and we are 25% of the way there. We have most of the stuff we need. We just need a couple new mics, and we're kind of ready to get onto video if you ever want to make that happen. So you can donate on PayPal at donate.backontrack.com. We made all of our links pretty simple, if you ask me, I think. Now, remember, you can share that with your family and friends, and we encourage you to do that because everything helps. We're really trying to put this together, and we want to grow not as fast as possible, but as organically as possible. That's why we're not buying ads and stuff, right? We just want it to be like word of mouth. So, tell your family and friends, like, hey, I like this podcast. You should try it out, right? All right, so that's kind of the end of it. Remember, we're on social media and YouTube. So go subscribe on YouTube and turn on the notifications so you know when we have our episodes, even though it's every Tuesday at 10 a.m. normally. Remember, we skipped last week. We're on Instagram at Back on Track Podcast, TikTok at Back on Track Podcast, Facebook at Back on Track Podcast, and we got kicked off of Twitter, so we're nowhere on Twitter. Freaking big tech. Those guys suck. All right. Well, this has been the Back on Track Podcast. This has been Alex from the Back on Track Podcast, and I am now signing off.